What is the Cloudcast?
Cloudcast is a product of Buchs Reber Productions, or no, Reber Buchs Productions. Sorry, that was a Freudian slip there. Reber Buchs Productions that is designed to give folks in the pews an opportunity to listen to the Bible and conversation about the Bible on the regular. How's that?
That sounds great. I think that's what I signed up for. I only asked the question because I've done some charting based on last week's subscriber growth. So if we continue at this clip of 273% growth, in 10 weeks, we will have 600,000 subscribers.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Guys, you all have friends, every one of you who clicked that subscribe button because you loved the content you were getting. Share it with a friend. Each of you only has to share it with 2.73 people for us to continue on this trajectory. All right.
I was thinking about our different personalities. So it's us reading the Bible. So if you don't like us, maybe you like the Bible. And if you don't like either, this podcast isn't for you. But I was thinking about how to describe our personalities. And this is what I came up with. You are an academic who does fitness academically, and I am a jock who does academics athletically.
Okay. Man, you're clever. That's really good. I like that. I wanted to chafe when you led with academic, but I'm wearing a tweed jacket today, so it's kind of like I can't.
How many PhD credits do you have, buddy?
None. I don't have any actually. So
Well, you did some
I got,
coursework,
I got.
didn't you?
No, that's the thing. I said it was a research only degree that I started at, so I don't have any. I got nothing to show for it except for a pile full of notes. That's what I have.
Well, so you really are a struggling academic.
Yeah, that's why the other thing when you said academic is I'm like, I don't feel qualified to be labeled an academic, so I have the classic imposter syndrome. I think that fits the bill as well.
This is that an allergic term? Because I was emailing with somebody who has a PhD, who actually teaches at one of our seminaries, and he said he wasn't so academically inclined. And I was like,
Right.
well, if you're not academically inclined, then then who is?
Yeah. What I think that it does carry with it all kinds of negative connotations, like your nose is in the books and you have no connection to the real world. Ivory tower, hoity-toity. You care more about the letters after your name than about actual relevant information, right?
Oh, sure. Okay. So credentialism, which I'm always fighting against. But here's the thing. I like round glasses.
Yeah. Well, okay. So that's why, in some sense, the jock who does academics in a jockey way, athletic way, doesn't quite cover all of the bases because you have. Okay. Well, there's something that defies categorization about you. Okay. So you got the glasses. You've got the New Yorker. You've got puzzle competitions, right? You've
I did a puzzle competition once and I hated it.
That's not what the look on your face told me when you were talking about it.
Well, I'm just not very good at expressing myself. Okay, but my point was, I don't need you to psychoanalyze me. I mean, you can do that later. That'd be kind of fun. But if you thought this was just another
Right.
gripe LCMS podcast, then just go ahead and hit unsubscribe.
So here's actually, as I've thought about inviting guests, and we've got some, like you mentioned last time, we've got some fun guests coming up, and I've been thinking about the pitch. And so here's the pitch that I've been giving to people. The idea for this podcast is that we would have the kind of conversation that naturally emerges when two pastors talk about the Bible. When they open the Bible and talk about it, you get to participate in the conversation that just naturally happens, right? And that's always a function of our personality. So, for instance, Jason Broughton and David Peterson open the Bible and read. Now, of course, they're doing it with the goal of preaching in mind. And you and I we don't have that as our particular end. We're not taking pericopes, we're taking the chapters. But also, you and I are very different from the two of them. In fact, that would be fun to get them both on at the same time. Broughton and Peterson and you and me. That would be interesting.
Make it happen.
I'm going to do it. All right. You guys, if you guys are listening, Watch for an email.
Love it. All right. Hey, today's MLK Day. What you got for me?
Okay, so I had my phone read the Wikipedia article to me about MLK Day while I was driving into work this morning. And here are some things that I learned that I found fascinating. The first one is that the origins of MLK Day are in labor negotiations. So the origin of MLK Day is primarily about a federally a paid day off for federal employees, which is interesting, um, and remarkable to note how the day has a character very different than that presently. So the news is about an appreciation for MLK, right? The news is about civil rights. When the day was originally a question of can we get another paid day off for federal employees? Fascinating. Here's the other thing. Until recently, because it was a federal thing, states had to decide whether or not they were going to implement it or to what extent they would implement it for their employees. And lots of states, especially in the South, gave employees an option whether they could take MLK Junior Day off or another day, some of which were named for Confederate heroes. And so what I learned is that until 2017, the day in Arkansas was called MLK Day / Robert E. Lee Day. That's really interesting. So here's the third interesting thing that I learned. New Hampshire in 1991, when they implemented MLK Day for their state, they didn't want to add another paid day off. And so they had to replace a previously celebrated paid day off. And the one they replaced was Fast Day. This gets really interesting. So New Hampshire had, until 1991, an annual fast day that comes out of colonial times, pre-colonial times, the 1600s. States, no surprise to you, would regularly celebrate fast days, in which they would abstain from secular work, they'd abstain from food, and they would devote themselves to prayer. And in fact, there would be a cycle of a fast day prior to the planting of crops, and then a Thanksgiving day after the harvest. Now, makes complete sense. Interesting that that was what MLK Day replaced in New Hampshire. So you went from a day that was originally designed specifically for religious purposes to a day that has labor implications to begin with, and then also has ideological connections subsequent to it, right? So the order gets reversed. That's really interesting. Just as a note, when I was reading the New Hampshire state information about their history of fast days, they described how they kind of like the use of fast days in the United States kind of faded out in the late 1800s, 1890s, while New Hampshire maintained theirs until 1991. But in the course of the implementation of fast days is somewhere, maybe in Massachusetts, there was a guy who was kind of like, I don't know, the father of fast days. And he declared one because he was sick. And so people prayed and fasted. And then the article said, but even though it was unsuccessful because he died, they continued to celebrate fast days at various times throughout the year. And that was really interesting too, that the mark of success of a fast day, according to this source, must be whether or not you obtained what you asked for. Anyways, those are all things I learned on my commute this morning. Do with that what you will.
That's that's really enlightening. Okay, I knew maybe a little bit of that, but not to the full extent. I love trivia, so thanks. I was thinking, what's the parallel with church festivals? Like, do you have to just, because we have so many, there's no way you could possibly observe all of them. Although it does depend on the calendar you have. But here, prime example, yesterday, January 18th, the festival of the Confession of St. Peter. So you gotta pick. Do you go with that, or do you go with Epiphany 2, which is your favorite Sunday of the church year?
Yeah. So that's obvious for me because marriage is more important than Peter.
Okay. Okay, great answer. I was thinking about how to implement this, and maybe you just have to do it and impress on your members how important these festival days are. But it would just seem kind of weird if all of a sudden, like in the middle of the summer, you just took a Sunday and celebrated a particular saint.
It does. It seems weird to me. It seems arbitrary. I could imagine it being so. Here's the thing about MLK is like if you want to um, highlight civil rights, then having an MLK Day makes complete sense. If you want to highlight let's say, confession and growth in discipleship, confession of the faith and growth in discipleship, then a confession of St. Peter Day makes complete sense, right? But to do it just because it's the day, kind of feels rather arbitrary to me, right? And that I think is the way it comes across. If you just like, it's like, well, it's on the calendar, so we kind of have to do it. It's even worse, of course, when it's a secular thing and it's on the calendar, and we're just going to completely ignore the significance of it, the meaning of it, and we're just going to take a day off, right? It's like Veterans Day or whatever. It's just like we're just going to take a day off.
Yeah. Do you think there's any positive value then for MLK Day? I actually think there is. So we probably lost about 10 subscribers, which is fine.
Go ahead and describe the value that you see in it.
Well, okay, so there's obviously questions about his character, and you can read about the number of affairs that he had over the years, and like none of us are subscribing to that being any kind of good. But this whole idea that human beings have equal dignity is a biblical one, and that's only in full force when you have Christians speaking this way. So I was reminded of like Wilberforce, the great abolitionist. Where is he getting all his ideas from? Christianity. And here's the great irony: is that Christians are the ones who abolished slavery, and then now we end up getting blamed for it.
Right, right. Yeah, and I think that was the hazard. That even at the time that MLK Day was introduced, Reagan, who was the president responsible for signing the law that was passed by the legislature, was against it because he didn't think there was sufficient warrant for putting MLK as the face of that principle, right? I mean, so if you highlight the "I Have a Dream" speech, right, and you highlight this charge to America to honor its core principles concerning equal dignity. Okay, so there you're gathering this ideological thing that's really that is important, that's biblical. But the idea that you need a figure to attach that to, and that he's a martyr in particular, right? It makes it hairy, I think, honestly. So because then it's polarizing. It actually ends up being polarizing on the issue and pushes people to extremes on the question because it surrounds this personality as opposed to the actual issue. You talk to anybody, even people who are supposed to be, okay, this is going to get me in trouble probably, but even people who are supposed to be like racists, or maybe even themselves identify as racists, I suspect that by and large, given a situation where there's kind of a dilemma about treating somebody with dignity, they would err on the side of dignity because these are values that have been propagated in the West because of Christianity, and they're hard to escape, right?
That's a big assumption. I don't know. After reading, I don't go on Twitter a whole lot. Well, I can't anymore because Elon. If you don't have an account, you can't read them
Right.
anymore. But I have seen some pretty vile things that are blatantly anti-Christian, and I think most of it is just to try to inflame things and get followers. So stop taking
Eh,
the bait.
Well, and that's the thing is, so inflammatory statements there's a lot you can say about a lot you can ask about the danger and assert about the danger of those things. But my point is that, and I'm not like trying to justify or defend people who say vile things. There's some core there. There's some kernel there of respect for human dignity that like is kind of inescapable in the West, right? Um, and that's why, like, when it gets attached to a figure, to a person, to a martyr, it actually makes it more difficult, I suspect, to highlight that kind of universal principle of human dignity.
But do you need a martyr for any cause?
You need it for publicity's sake very often, right? It certainly works that way. That means galvanizing, right?
I'm I'm trying. I mean, I think theologically, you need a martyr. Like it's ingrained in us.
Sure. Okay, so you need somebody who demonstrates that this cause is worth giving their life for.
Precisely. Yep.
Yeah.
And then you got to ask, is it is the cause actually worth giving up your life for? And then what kind of person is the martyr before we do some hagiography?
Right. Right. Yeah, a person, and that is where a judgment about a person's character really does matter, and you can't you can't whitewash it, right? Like, so for instance, although did these examples of ministers who fall publicly after having long ago fallen privately, um, they really do need to just go away. They need to stop talking because uh, their character calls into question the message that they are proclaiming.
Yeah. Yeah. Double like.
Yeah. Okay, that's MLK Day. Interesting stuff. I don't know very much about it. I didn't even realize that the files were unsealed over the summer. That Reagan said when the question was asked, "What about MLK?" He said, "Well, I guess we'll find out in 35 years," and that was over the summer. So
Oh wow. Well, I was too busy trying to get the Epstein files released. By the
yeah.
way, where are those? That is the that is the weirdest thing. I
Where is Ghislaine Maxwell? That's what I want to know.
she's outside of College Station, Texas, isn't she? She's not. Yeah, I think she's getting preferential treatment in some kind of federal facility. It's pretty disgusting. And I try not to share my political views too often, but I think this is just like bland vanilla stuff. It's like, guys, pedophilia is not okay, and we should all get on board with that.
Yeah. In fact, yeah, you're right. Pedophiles should. Right. Never mind. Okay, go on.
Okay. Hey, great. Hey, moving to the Bible then, what we promised to do at the beginning of our opening here. This is going to be an introduction to Genesis 43. What is your favorite theory of the atonement?
Well, I would critique the label theory.
Academically, that's what they're called, though, atonement theories.
I know. Yeah. But
Okay. All right. Give me your meta. Give me
so
your
I mean, the
meta
idea is that
analysis.
like we don't really know what the atonement is, and so here are some theories about how the atonement operates. It is a fact that the blood of a sacrifice pays for the guilt of the one who's the beneficiary of that sacrifice. That's atonement.
So, would you be more
So
comfortable
vicarious satisfaction.
calling them um, aspects of the atonement? Really make it alliteration? Because, of course, the three historical views all start with A as well. This is
There you go.
the three A's of the atonement. And
What do we have?
you know how much of a
Anselmian.
sucker. So yep, you got Anselm. That's the classic substitutionary atonement, penal substitutionary atonement, and of course vicarious satisfaction falls under that. I think that is the most powerful. If you don't have that, the crucifixion means nothing. And then historically, it's Abelard who comes next, who follows Anselm, who is critiquing Anselm primarily, and this would be the exemplary theory of the atonement that Jesus Christ gives us an example to live by, which you can't 100% discount it because it's true. Because what does Jesus say? Pick up your cross, right?
Right.
So if Jesus does it, then we're clearly meant to do it too. He's our example. And then third, and I would rank this the second most important aspect of it, would be Aulin, Gustav Aulin, who writes a book in Latin. Well, the title's Latin. Was he Swedish? Is that right?
Sounds. I mean, Gustav. That sounds
Yeah,
Swedish.
Gustav. It's a good name. Christus Victor, right? Victorious Christ. And this is the idea that Christ is triumphant, marching into Jerusalem and kicking the devil in the mouth. Now, and the primary biblical passage to go for this would be the binding of the strong man.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, they're all biblical. They paint this full picture, but at the heart of the heart of atonement is what restores the relationship between God and man is the blood of Jesus Christ. Right.
Precisely. Now, atonement's a made-up English word.
Yeah, it's hilarious. Drives me. I can't stand it. It's like, I mean, it is like a kindergarten word.
Kindergarten is a German word for What? Kids, kids,
child garden, kids garden,
yeah, kids garden. Okay, it's good.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
So
that's
the
right up
Germans
there
can do
with.
it, but
So rank your German words. So you've got Heils, Geschichte, and
nice job.
Kindergarten, and Wunderbar.
They're all beautiful.
Now I bring it up. Now this seems like really basic Christianity 101, but academically, a lot of people deny penal substitutionary atonement.
What's the rationale for, or the concern that they have? Is it this caricature of God as, um, uh, what's the word? Like angry child sacrifice? Is that kind of the
Yeah, I think
objection?
it's coming from two angles. So on the one hand, you have the crazy liberal radical feminist theologians who would, I think they would use the term like divine child abuser.
Right. There you go.
And so they just see this angry God whose wrath needs to be satiated, and they don't like it. It makes them uncomfortable, and they can't reconcile that with First John, God is love.
So, how would you explain it to an angry feminist that those two things are not incompatible? Because the wrath of God is justified against sinners, and his wrath is what is satisfied. His wrath towards sinful men is what's satisfied by the blood of Jesus. And God is love.
Right. So God is capable of being more than one thing, just as human beings are, but even more to the nth degree. So God has to be fully just, and he also has to be fully love at the same time. And if he loses one of those aspects, then he's no longer, you know, the divine being who created the universe. Because we live in a perfectly just world, but we also live in a perfectly gracious world.
Do you think that his openness to the transfer of judgment to Jesus, like that the fact that that fits in the economy of perfect justice, do you think that that's a manifestation of the principle that mercy triumphs over justice? That's a biblical principle, right?
Yeah,
Because like perfect justice
Hosea,
would
right?
say, yeah, perfect justice would say nobody can pay but you, right? But mercy triumphs over justice in that this economy actually allows somebody to pay in your place.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is what Jesus means because he tells this to the Pharisees twice, right? In Matthew, right? Go learn what this means. I desire mercy and not sacrifice. And then comes up later because obviously they didn't learn learn what it means. So they're denying the atonement.
Right. Right. Yeah, and the centrality of that, I think, is of the vicarious satisfaction of the satiation of God's wrath. That is has become clear, I think, clearer and clearer. Right? I mean, isn't it the title of Scare's book? Right? There is no without blood. What was it? What was the name of his book published by Odd Crewson?
Well,
Something.
is it
No atonement without.
without the shedding of blood? I mean, that's from Hebrews, right?
Right. Right. And something that has been overlooked in the wake of gospel reductionism, right, as we talked about last time. I mean, would you agree that Barth has no need for the atonement, right? You said something to that effect last time.
Oh, that'd be yeah. I need to look particularly into atonement because it trickles out into Lutheranism, where you get Gerhard Forde taking a very Barthian approach and then writing essays about the atonement, where he denies that the cross was necessary to forgive sins. And so
Yeah,
this is the other angle. So this is different than the radical feminists, although they're strangely they're related because they come to the same conclusion. But his essay is all about we have a forgiving God, and the reason they killed Jesus was because he wasn't forgiving. But he would have said if they would have just accepted the forgiveness, then everything would have been good, and then Jesus wouldn't have had to die.
huh. Okay. I'm confused by all of that, but anyway.
That's radical. That's radical Lutheranism, buddy.
Right. Yeah. Hmm. So just to follow that thread one step further, I'm thinking about um, an idea that I hear that we hear commonly in certain circles in the Missouri Synod about kind of like planting seeds, exposing people to Jesus, right? Just kind of like tangentially showing people Jesus. It's a justification very often for uh, service ventures of various kinds, right? So we're gonna meet our neighbors' material needs, and in the process, we'll touch them with Jesus, right? We'll give them a little bit of Jesus. And I was thinking about the idea that that is evangelism, and how it's I don't I'm curious. I question whether that holds, because in showing kindness to people, you've not said anything yet of the atonement, right? You've met material needs, which is good, and you're supposed to do that because God commands you to, and because you love your neighbor. But it's not yet the gospel, right? There's somebody that says that it's not yet the gospel.
Well, the word evangelism is the Greek word for gospel, and so
Right.
then you have to define what the gospel content is, and it's got to be the creed, right?
Yeah. Right. And could you say then that anything less than that um, is too ambiguous to be like fruitful, to actually to say, because I mean it could be any God, not the atoning God, right?
Yeah, and only the triune God actually saves.
Yeah, yeah. But that, of course, is really challenging because um, people don't people aren't interested in that as a package deal, right? So here, come to our food pantry, and in order to make sure that we're actually ministering to you, we're not just going to give you food, but we're going to give you the gospel, right? We're not just going to show the love of Christ in meeting your material needs, but we're going to show you the love of Christ in the cross of Jesus. That's pretty off-putting for people who just like want some food, you know?
Right. Well, you can't. I don't think you can force anybody into believing, or even like, see, this is why I get uncomfortable with like the bait and switch. It's like we're only going to do mercy work if you come to this service kind of a thing. And maybe I need to be corrected on that, but like you gotta offer both, right?
Right, and that's where I'm just thinking about how there is a kind of a helpful distinction between these two things. Mercy and evangelism are they're obviously connected, because the same person who's showing mercy is also going to evangelize. But mercy work is not evangelism. It's a different task, right?
Right. Yep. And you see this in the book of Acts with the distinction between the preachers and then those who serve tables.
Yeah,
But they
yeah,
both
right.
but they both flow from God.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, so set up your what's your perfect evangelism model intertwined with mercy work?
Yeah. I mean, so I think that evangelism happens most effectively, statistically speaking, and also biblically, on a biblical warrant, just through the personal relationships, right? So you, dear Christian, should invite everybody you know to church. Full stop. And you should be talking. You should be. So you should grow comfortable talking about your faith, having God's word written on the doorposts of your houses and on the frontlets between your eyes, so that everybody knows that you're the person who believes in Jesus. And I don't mean it it's of course possible to do that in an obnoxious way, in a um, you know self-righteous way, or in a way that's not like that's not that's grating and not gracious. But the only way, the best way for people to hear about Jesus is by knowing that you believe in him, and so they have a reason to ask you for the hope that is in you, right? So they can see that trumps any evangelism program, as far as I'm concerned. That's step number one. And until we get that right, until people are comfortable with that, like, you might get people to come into the church doors, but if that's not the life that is being lived outside of the church walls, then what are they coming for, right?
Hmm. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, First Peter, right? Always be prepared to give a defense for the hope that is in you. Um, what I've tried to prepare my people for it. Um, with if anybody ever asks you why you're a Christian, like you better be able to give them just a basic answer. And what I've always said is just tell them I'm a Christian because Jesus Christ died on a cross and then came back from the dead 3 days later.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I think that then puts in context other things that we might do. Like, for instance, I'm a big fan of making sure that all of our neighbors, all of the church's neighbors, know who we are and what we stand for. Like if they don't know, we owe it to them that they might know that. But it's not so much for the purpose of like um, like, uh, evangelism, strictly speaking, but it's so that if ever at any point they start asking the questions that we have answers to, they know where to go to find the answers. Right? It's not like, here's the pitch. Come, would you like to buy this product? It's, here's who we are, and we're available for when those questions come up. Right?
Oh, sure, yeah, yeah. That's that's great because you can't possibly expect all your members to remember Anselm, Abelard, and Allen, but
Right?
they know where to send them when
Yeah.
those questions
Exactly.
arise.
Yeah. Yeah. Meanwhile, mercy work, by the way, you asked about that as well. I think it's really important that mercy work be attendant to actual needs, right? So it ought to be a kind of a measurable thing. You ought to always be reevaluating and saying, like, what um, uh, Christ has called us to love our neighbor by feeding, clothing, giving warmth, visiting, right? Providing for the widow and the fatherless, those who don't have anyone looking out for them. So where are those needs? And let's make sure we're not leaving them unmet. Or here's another thing: is like we're not letting other institutions meet those needs when we could meet them better, right?
Yeah, so a lot of that list comes from Matthew 25, and I was thinking like how many of those things just describe being a good friend?
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, which is why to that very point, I think that in a healthy congregation, both mercy and evangelism are not programmatic, glamorous things. They just happen naturally, right?
So if you're not friends with people in the congregation, and I get it, we're all socially awkward. it's it's tough, right? But you need at least put forth an effort because if you don't have Christian friends, that's a bleak outlook.
Right. Yeah,
Would you
and
say the
there is
only
room
thing?
for that. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, would you say the only thing that saves your sanity are the group chats that you're in with pastors?
I will say that that is integral, and the conversations that we get to have as pastors it's really really important. It's super important. Um, but I do value Christian friendship highly with folks who are not pastors. Um, and in fact, that's one of the places where, ironically, I've come to value Christian friendship with people who are of different confessions. Um, like just Christians who go to a different church, because there's no relationship there. There's no authority. It's just like, hey, you believe in Jesus and I believe in Jesus. Praise God, brother.
Right. Yeah. So this city's church in St. Paul, Minnesota, was invaded yesterday by protesters, and Don Lemon, former CNN anchor, just barges in, and they stop the Christian worship, and I'm sure more will come out about this. And so I texted my friend. He's been on the podcast. Joshua Foster used to be a pastor at that church. I was like, this is crazy. This is insane. This is evil. And I just texted him yesterday to check in, and it was so heartful to get the response. He's like, yeah, I think things are crazy, but we're praying that what men mean for evil, God is able to use for good.
Oh man, it's so good. I love it.
It's like this is nuts. But now we can see the like I wish that on no one. But the profile and they happen to be a Baptist church, and from what I see, they believe the Bible, and it's like I'm not going to stop that. Like that's that's great. So I pray for them, and that that the gospel would still be preached with even more authority and gusto now.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you remember this about Lutheran evangelism efforts? I think this helps put in perspective our relationship to other Christians of other confessions. That when we would go into a place, the Missouri Synod or early Lutherans in America, when we would go into a place, we would not evangelize people who belong to a Baptist church. We would speak clearly. We would preach from the pulpit about Baptist heterodoxy, but you didn't evangelize those people because they're Christians.
Right, because we recognize it's the Word of God that makes a Christian, and
Right.
And it's like, yeah, you can have these, we call them heterodox beliefs, and we got to call it that if it's not biblical, and it obviously that's fine. We can just disagree on some stuff, but if they have the word of God, they're still Christians. So this is why we're so frustrated with Roman Catholicism and Eastern Orthodoxy, because all they're doing is trying to evangelize Protestants.
Hmm.
Meanwhile, they're not allowed to evangelize Jews or Muslims.
Yeah. Isn't that something?
It's like, it's like, guys, come on! Like, we we have the gospel of Jesus Christ, and then you're just okay with these people who clearly don't have the gospel. They don't believe in the triune God, and you're like, we worship the same God anyways. Oh my goodness! Like the biggest stands of David Banky are the Roman Catholics. I just
That
name
word
dropped.
"stan" and I've heard it before, but I don't know what it means.
Okay, it's an Eminem song, and it's a very obsessed fan over something, a pretty dark song, but that's what it means. It's an obsessed fan.
Okay.
I'm glad I get to educate you on white culture here on the podcast.
Uh, I was just the kids are translating Caesar's Gallic Wars, and in the beginning it talks about how the Belgians, I think it's the Belgians, are the most savage of the Gallic tribes because they are the furthest from culture. They're the furthest from the heart of the province. So
Hmm.
I was thinking to myself, that's probably what that means for me. I'm among them. I'm among the savages.
You make some pretty good chocolate.
All right. So you asked about the atonement and the various aspects of the atonement because, presumably, because Judah is willing to take the place of his brother Benjamin in Genesis 43.
Precisely. So that's substitutionary atonement, and he doesn't have to shed his blood here, but he's willing to. And actually, it comes up in Genesis 49 with the blood of grapes, the blessing that Jacob puts on Judah.
I was trying to understand exactly what's the way to put this. Practically, this substitute would play out. So Reuben offers his sons as a substitute, which you have pointed out helpfully is ridiculous in two fronts. So Reuben's not offering himself, and what grandfather would accept grandsons as some sort of a substitutionary atonement for his own son? Um, but what is it that Judah says? I will be a pledge of his safety. From my hand you shall require him. If I do not bring him back to you and set him before you, then let me bear the blame forever, which is metaphysical. That's probably not the right word for it, but this is a transcendent kind of a pledge that he's making. He's not saying like, if Benjamin doesn't come back, here is an equal portion that I will give to you. Here's something that I will give to you to take his place. That's not what he's saying. What he's saying is, basically, I mean, like before God's throne, essentially, he's going to bear the guilt of the loss of Benjamin, right? Which is a much higher standard for atonement than what Reuben is offering.
Yeah, that's eternal. I mean, that's Paul saying that he would gladly go to hell for his own ethnic people to believe the gospel.
That's right. Yeah, and in fact, doesn't he kind of he puts a point on it when he says, "Woe to me if I'm constrained to preach the gospel. Woe to me if I don't." What does that woe mean? It's not like, well, I'll feel like a bum if I'm not doing this work. He's like, no, whoa, seriously, like because their fate would be worth my own soul. I ought to be doing at the very least this thing, preaching the gospel, right?
Yeah, it's like Ezekiel in the Watchtower, right? Their blood will be
Yeah,
required at your hand. That's an eternal kind of a judgment.
yeah. So Judah is not only in his willingness to offer this substitute, very commendable, but in his awareness that there are eternal kind of cosmic scales to be balanced. He is taking a much higher view of things, because you think about like the what's required of a person to do something like throw Joseph into a pit, contemplate murdering him, sell them into slavery, you kind of have to have worked out of your head a sense of transcendent justice. Like you have to have worked out of your head, out of your heart, the idea that you're going to have to pay for this, right?
Right. Yeah. We're, are we really, we just written off judgment in our modern day, haven't we? Like it's just because this is the problem with atheistic cultures. Dostoevsky said this, right? If there is no God, then everything is permissible. Yeah, and what's the what number psalm is it about? He who gave you eyes, does he not see, and who gave you ears, does he not hear? Like the people who don't believe in God think that he can't see or hear anything. Like there's never going to be a divine reconciliation of any kind.
And that I mean, it's so clear. And Paul asserts this, but I think we can observe it. It's so clearly baked into human nature that you have to resist it. This is what I think he means when he's part of what he means when he says they suppress the truth and unrighteousness. That you actually have to work hard to erase the human intuition about judgment. That there is hell to pay for things.
And there's also a positive aspect to it too, right? Jesus
Right.
says, do these things in secret, and your Father in heaven who sees it will reward you. So there's also there's a great gracious aspect to it as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So Judah turns this corner, and it's exhibited here in his willingness to take Benjamin's place. And at the same time, there's a lot of kind of uncertainty about the status of all of these men, the status of these brothers. So, for instance, I mean, Judah says we could have gone and returned 2 times if we hadn't been just kind of dilly dallying. If we had been decisive, and that made me think about how at no point is there a discussion about, hey, what about Simeon? Does anybody care about that guy? He's just like just chilling in Egypt, and there's apparently no plan to go and get him back. It's like it's a casualty of famine.
Do you think part of it is the stench from all the people he and Levi slaughtered back in chapter 34, right? That they don't they're like, oh well, he's kind of the problematic violent brother anyways.
It certainly does make it easier to write somebody off when they've got something like that in their history, right?
I'm sure Levi was like, oh phew, I dodged a bullet there, because Simeon's older, right? Isn't the order Reuben, Simeon, and then Levi?
Yes, Reuben, Simeon, Levi. Yep,
Yeah,
Levi's third.
and then
Yeah.
and then Judah. Yeah, because if you took Reuben, he's the firstborn, but at this point, his brothers have completely written him off, so they really could not care any less. With Simeon, it's like with Simeon, we feel kind of bad, but he's still he's still that crazy guy who circumcised all those people and then killed them 3 days later.
Yeah, I picture Levi not so much on the one hand, like, I mean, on the one hand, good, I've escaped this particular fate, but he's got to know that something else is coming for him, right? He's got to know. It's like you're not going to escape.
Right, and they're lumped together then at the end of the at the end of the book, right? Simeon and Levi are sons of violence. Israel calls them. I'm really looking forward to talking about that. We got to get some kind of biblical expert to talk about those blessings.
Peter Lightheart, let's get him on.
You kind of look like him. Maybe you could convince him that you guys are cousins.
Well, he has an origin in the Missouri Synod, and so there's a connection there we could probably play on. I'll send him an email.
Okay, that'd be great. Peter, we love you
for taking up that chapter. Would be awesome.
Wait, what did you say about Peter just like half an hour ago? That marriage is more important than Peter?
Yeah.
Good luck. Okay, there's a number of themes here in Genesis 43. So they drink alcohol at the end of the chapter, and this was brought up a couple weeks ago about we have an alcohol culture. in our church body, which I think is true. Like you go to any kind of pastors conference, right? And the first question is, where's the beer? So give me a positive vision for alcohol consumption, and then the inherent danger with it too.
So I was talking about this with my Bible class yesterday in view of Nazarites, and I think that they are a good model for it. They are to abstain from wine or strong drink while their task is yet to be completed, right? Whatever the task is for which they took the Nazarite vow, they're to abstain from wine and strong drink. And the idea is that this cycle of fasting and feasting is necessary, or the cycle between labor and rest is necessary. So the proper place for drinking and being merry is when you have fulfilled your duties, when you have been responsible. Um, did we talk about this? The irony with, or the challenge with alcohol is that the more you consume of it, the less you are capable of fulfilling your responsibilities. And so it is this thing. Wine and alcohol are this gift that God gives to humanity that require maturity, right? So when you're a parent, my kids go to the cupboard and they're like, I want to eat some chocolate. And if they're left to their own devices, they would eat all the chocolate. And I know that because if I didn't have a measure of self-discipline, I would eat all the chocolate. And they are children, right? And so they need me to tell them what moderation looks like. They need me to moderate their consumption. And yet here God gives wine to humanity and says it's for joy, but you also know that joy without context, the joy, that feasting without fasting, that rest without labor, that joy without affliction becomes immoderate and actually destroys humanity, destroys you. You need to act like grown-ups and put it in its proper place. Which is why I don't know that it's wrong. Like I think you actually could say a pastors' conference is the place for pastors to drink alcohol, if it is a time of rest from their labors, right? If it's feasting after they've fasted. But that's the question, because so often it's like this is just an opportunity to increase consumption instead of
Mhm.
it being consumption at the end of an abstinence, right?
That was great. The Nazarite thing, you can do some really good theology with it. So, priests in the Old Covenant were prohibited from drinking on the job. So you can't drink in church in the Old Testament. And of course, the stark parallel then is in the New Testament. What does Christ tell us to do at church?
Right.
It's like drink alcohol. And so the message there is, okay, the job is done. It's like you don't, right? What does it always say on the wine bottle? Like, don't drink when operating heavy machinery.
That's right. That's right.
But then when you're done with the task, enjoy a glass of wine. So what we're saying is, like every Sunday, it's like, guys, the job has been done, right? Of like Christ's vicarious satisfaction of salvation for the whole world. So we can actually drink wine with God, just like Moses did on that mountain.
And Jesus is a great illustration of that and the implementation of the Nazarite vow, because he says to his disciples, I will not drink from the fruit of the vine until I drink it anew in the kingdom. And even on the cross, he declines to drink the strong drink until the task is completed.
Oh yeah, that's that's good. So like
Which would be like, I
wine.
mean, that's the time when he would want to drink it, right? It's like, you know, so I want the rest now. I want to not feel this pain now, right?
Oh, good. That got me thinking about I forget which book it was, but Chesterton on drinking alcohol suggests never drink when you're sad.
Yeah.
Only
Don't ever
oh,
drink because you have to. Yeah.
right. Only when you're joyous, and then it increases your joy, all the more.
Right. And what I love about it is, again, I've been kind of fascinated with this idea of the presumption of adulthood, the presumption of maturity when God gives us this gift. Which, interestingly, here's another thing you could reflect on. It's not in the garden. So they have fruit trees in the garden, but we don't have any talk about grape vines yet in the garden. It stands out to me as an absence, right? Just like you don't have grain growing in the garden for food. What does God say? I give to you every tree of the garden for food, right? We don't have grain and we don't have wine, at least not front and center, not explicitly in the garden. They may be there, but they're not explicit.
Sure. So the first time like grain and bread show up would be the curse in Genesis 3, right?
Yes.
By the sweat of your brow you will eat bread. And then we should look it up, but would the first time of the vine, the grapes for wine show up, would that be Genesis 9 with Noah?
I wonder. Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
And Noah's a
Yeah.
great example of like, it's proper. It's a proper time for feasting, in fact, because the labor is over,
Yeah, it's like this dude's been building an ark for 120 years.
right? Yeah.
Now it's time for a new creation. It's like, yeah, drink a
He's
glass of
been
wine.
white knuckled on the steering wheel of that boat for the last 360 days. Give the dude a glass of wine.
So it's good to drink wine, but the key is, we all know this, not in the morning, right? Like, because then you have
Yeah.
then you have a problem.
Mhm.
So with the Nazirite vow, Samson is made a Nazirite for his entire life,
Yes.
and the Nazirite vow is very temporary until you accomplish a specific task. So what I find so helpful there is Samson's task then actually is to die.
Yeah. Right. Right. A warrior. His task is a warrior task, and it culminates in his own death. Yeah. Yeah. The bit about hair, I've learned this from James Jordan, is also really fascinating. So you get this too. You can connect these things. Hair, the crown of your head, the glory of a woman, and a man undertaking a Nazirite vow lets his hair grow long, and in the end, his hair is cut and is burned on the altar with the sacrifice that he brings in fulfillment of his vow. So his hair, his glory, his crown is offered to God as a sacrifice in fulfillment of his vow, basically saying, like, I'm but a poor servant, right? I don't get any credit for the completion of this task. Of course, Samson, his hair goes to Delilah, and James Jordan pointed this out. Absalom is an anti-Nazirite because he cuts us hair off every year just for the sake of vanity. Look at how great my glory is, right? But that's also an important posture. They tie these two things together, right? So the feasting, the consumption of wine, comes at the point of also offering the sacrifice. And what you're sacrificing is not just some of the fruit of your labor, but you're also sacrificing your own glory. You're also burning up your own glory on the altar. And that's the proper attitude within which you can feast, right?
So is this feast then here in Genesis 43? This is preparatory for. I mean, Joseph is obviously going to forgive his brothers. That's the parallel.
So interesting, because I wondered as I was listening to it, is evidently something Joseph feels is untested yet, right? Because he doesn't reveal himself in 43. He invites them to this feast, and they are confused, right? In fact, what do they say? The men looked at one another in amazement, very much like they looked at each other at the beginning of chapter 41. And Jacob said, "Why do you stand around looking at each other?" So they don't know what to do, and it makes sense, right? Here they are invited to a feast, and they're feasting with Joseph, with Pharaoh's second in command. But what is the warrant for that? Where was the labor that's now been complete? Where was the toil that they've fulfilled? Right? They're confused. They're perplexed. And Joseph is undertaking this examination of them. And I wonder to what extent this feast is a part of that. Like, will they receive his goodwill? Will they drink his wine or not? Or will they be too suspicious of him to drink his wine?
Oh, that's good. Can you? I just thought of this. Could we make any typological connections with the Lord's Supper? Because you have the 12 there, right?
Yeah.
So you got kind of the same number, the drinking of wine, and he wants to see if they're gonna betray him. So that's why he sets them up in order, right? Because I think it's really to emphasize he knows that Benjamin is the youngest. So what did they do to their youngest brother previously? Well, they threw him in a well, and now he's going to give him a 5 times the amount of portion. So it's like when he's given this extraordinary gift, call it a multicolored dream coat. How are the brothers going to respond now? So I think he's trying to make it like painfully explicit. Guys, you have another chance here how to treat the youngest brother. Let's see what you're going to do.
Yeah, right. Because if they've been in the habit of uh, looking down on Benjamin, of abusing him, that would come out as soon as he gets this fivefold portion, right? Yeah,
What
interesting.
what do you make of the shepherds, the Israelites being an abomination to the Egyptians?
What verse you got there? Verse 32. So they won't eat together. Yeah. Uh, I don't know. I'm trying to think of the thread is so stark in Israel's history. What does Jacob say? He says, does he say something about being a shepherd? A wandering Aramean was my father. He doesn't say anything about being a shepherd, does he? Um, at the end of Genesis, right? Doesn't Jacob talk that way about the few and bitter have been the days of my life, right?
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think about the way in which being shepherds is integral to the people of Israel. Um, yeah. I don't know.
I wondered if like God is going to use this kind of prejudice that the Egyptians have to set it up so that the Israelites are going to get the best of the land of Goshen, and that they're not going to intermingle with the Egyptians because the Egyptians just want to stay away from them. So I kind of see it as a remnant that God is using.
Yeah. Okay. So when you fulfill the tasks that God has given to you, when you carry out your God-given responsibilities, you're a stench to your neighbors, and that actually is okay because there's a natural separation that occurs then, right?
Right. And if they want to join, they're more than welcome to, right? Because
Yeah.
this is why in Exodus and Deuteronomy you get all the commands about circumcising the people who live with you.
Yeah. There are lots of worldly wackos who would never want their kids to marry my kids because my kids are homeschooled. So I don't have to worry about it.
I think your kids are great.
I agree. They're pretty awesome. I mean, my two oldest kids are translating Caesar's Gallic Wars right now. That's awesome.
Are, are they academics who do athletics academically, or are they jocks?
They're jocks who do academics jockily. Yeah. It's parenting is fascinating because I'm in there. I'm a part of them. I can see myself in them, but they're definitely not all me. It's so interesting.
Yeah, it's so such a joy. Hey, you got anything that's grinding your gears?
No, I kind of gave it to you at the head, just thinking about secularism and worldly things. Here's something. Did we talk about this? About the risk of despair. I was thinking about how if so much of the work that Christians undertake in the world it feels like and is in fact at face value an uphill battle, right? So like we have optimism, but not the kind of optimism that says, look, in the end, we're gonna convince everybody, persuade everybody, everybody's behavior is going to be, in line.
I thought you were
We don't
post
have
mill.
that kind of. Yeah, I'm not right. So I don't get to think that, and that means that you're always kind of running interference. You're always kind of it always feels like you're playing catch up, putting out fires. You try to get ahead of things, but you're still always putting out fires because even once you put out one fire and you start to do some fire mitigation, or fire prevention, yeah, you don't know where all the fires are, right? They're going to keep popping up. And how if you had an idea of like your job as a Christian or as a pastor was to reach some sort of equilibrium and everything's just cool, you'll be gravely disappointed because that's not in the nature of the task, right?
Yeah. Isn't isn't that the dream though? Just make a greasy wheel. Everything goes smooth all the time. You just say a mass, everybody goes home happy. No hospital visits, nobody ever suffers, no conflict, no sin.
That's right. Yeah, everybody shows up and they listen to the sermon and they take it to heart, and I don't have to say it more than once because I said it perfectly, right? And they believe me. Um, yeah, I mean, sure, that would be a dream,
But
but that's not the way.
isn't it better for our own souls though that like things are just constantly falling apart? It's like this year I've had so many people in the hospital, surgeries, several people who have fallen. I've got like three people I'm taking, three couples I'm taking through premarital counseling right now. Like things just, and it's good, joyous work. It's just like, man, like holy smokes. And it's just a constant reminder of, well, okay. Do I actually believe what I preach?
Yeah, and I return to Paul in Second Corinthians where he says it twice. He says, "To keep me from becoming conceited, God gave me a thorn in my flesh." And when I pleaded with him to take it away, he said, "Shut up." Yeah, he's like, "Remember, this is to keep you from being conceited." And I think that that's the thing. Like, I might frame it as like, "Oh, I would like this for the people. I would like this for the church. I would like things to be stable and equilibrium and so on and so forth." But it's conceit. It's like that's what it amounts to. And God knows what's best. He knows that that conceit needs to be put to death, and so He keeps the stuff coming. You know.
We sang Lamb of God, Pure and Holy yesterday as our first communion hymn. And it's great, slow, very repetitive. But one of the lines is, "Lest despair had reigned over us."
Yeah. Right. Else had despair
Uh,
reigned o'er us. Yeah.
yeah, and it was just, yeah. What's your go-to thing? Things are falling off the wagon. Do you have a hymn you go to or a psalm you go to?
Why should cross and trial grieve me? You know, God gives me
Oh,
my
it's good.
days of gladness, and I will trust him still when he sends me sadness.
It's good. I always go, if thou but trust in God to guide thee. And then my memory work for this past week was Psalm 3, which was which was great. It's like, oh Lord, how many are rising against me? How many say of my soul there is no salvation for him in God? You read YouTube comments, and by the way, you should go start a start a church body called Holy Remnant Lutheran denomination. That'd be good for
It's
you.
a good
Um,
suggestion.
but it's like I will not I will not fear though thousands rise up against me.
Right. That's
Right.
Psalm 91. We were doing that yesterday. Thousands may fall at your side, and 10,000s may fall around you, but you'll be okay.
That's right. Yeah. So it
Say
really just
say
comes.
more about memorizing your psalms. I want to. You're 3 weeks in now. What's cooking?
Yeah. So week one was Psalm 1, which was fairly easy because I that's just a basic staple psalm. But the real goal with it wasn't only to get the words down, which obviously was the goal, but it was like deep, slow meditation on those words and to really take them to heart. And so you say a psalm, and by day 3, you pretty much have the words down. So like by Wednesday or Thursday, I've got the memory down, but then it's repeating it during the last part of the week, and then it's like, oh man, this is what this
Yeah.
really means. So this week is going to be Psalm 4, and I intentionally picked the shorter psalms. So like I didn't pick 119, and the goal was this deep meditation, which Psalm 1 speaks about.
Yeah.
And it's really I think it's really paying dividends. Are you doing it too?
I have not fired it up yet. Although I'm glad to hear that the first one was Psalm 1. I didn't look at your list yet because I've got Psalm 1 down. What was the second Psalm? It wasn't Psalm
Th-
3.
it was 3. Yep.
Oh, okay. So 1 and then 3. What's the next one?
4.
4. Okay. 4 is great. You have given me more joy than they have when their grain and their wine abound.
Yeah.
That's it's
And
good.
yeah,
That's relevant.
uh, be angry and do not sin.
Yeah, right, right. Yeah, no, I'm gonna join. I'll catch up with you here, because I agree. There was a season when I was, it was unsustainable, but it was really, really fruitful, where I was reciting aloud all of the Psalms in the course of a week, and I would like have my timer go off every 2 hours, and I would do like 6 minutes of Psalms every 2 hours. And I could only do it for so long, but the way it improved my vocabulary and my awareness of what's available to me in the Psalter is just like that continues to bear fruit.
Hmm, great. I'm this is going to take me a while too, but I started The Idiot by Dostoevsky, and man, he's so good. I really like him. Everybody should just stop what they're doing and read some Fyodor Dostoevsky. It'll make your day. Because he's such a keen observer of the human condition.
There you go.
And
That's what we need.
like he's writing out of necessity because he is broke, because he is a serial gambler who just he keeps losing money, and he needs to write these genius masterpieces to survive. He almost dies by political violence. Like, do you know the story? He's on the line. They're about to shoot him, and then like 2 minutes before the firing squad goes, they get a letter of reprieve.
I think
And this
that
is
the lesson there is don't aspire to be a genius masterpiece creator because the cost is really, really high.
well, so the crazy thing is that happens before he writes any of his masterpieces.
Yeah, right. I mean, but that's like the preparatory phase, right?
It's like so many, yeah, it's like all these masterpieces we get. When did Van Gogh chop his ear off? I don't know, and you're gonna be like, oh, it's Van Gogh. Oh, shut up, okay, all right. I don't need your I don't need your Dutch. It's Heil's Geschichte. That's what you
You
sound
forgot to
like.
push up your glasses. Yeah.
But I think he painted after that, right? So like think about if Van Gogh had just gone and died after he chopped his ear off. Like how many of our masterpieces would be missing? That's providence, isn't it?
Yeah, it must be. Yeah.
So I'm thankful that Dostoevsky survived and gave me some good literature to mull over.
There you go. God knows what he's doing.
Amen.
All right.
See you later.
Good talk.
Toodles.
Take it easy.